sent a video through to the Red Planet hosts group chat at one point in the week. I just thought it was super interesting. It's this Indian woman. I don't know if she's from Delhi, but she's talking about Delhi and about how bad the air pollution is there and how it's like dangerous, like super, like crazy dangerous. She talks at one point about a scale for air quality that caps out at 500 because no one ever expected it to get worse than that. And Delhi's peak number is like 1700, right? Like just for random things. But the whole video is about how good Beijing is and how Beijing was able to deal with the exact same problem. They have literally, even down to the physical geography, the same problems. And they were able to deal with it and bring down from the same levels to clean-ish air for a big city in 5 years. And it's because of socialism. Great video. And I will pass it on to the producer so it can be linked in the pod description because genuinely, like, great video. But she makes a little joke in it, which fascinated me, where she was like listing off all the wonderful real benefits of like what Beijing has done. And she makes a joke at the end of the list that babies who are born in hospitals in Beijing now sigh a big, uh, breathe a big sigh of relief in the clean, at breathing such clean air. And I was just like captivated by the image of Chinese babies being born and going, oh, thank God I'm Chinese.
No, for
It's
real
just
though.
like white people trying to say something deep and being like, why do babies always cry when they're born? And the rest of the world being like, your babies are crying when they're born.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely why babies cry so much in Britain. Can you imagine
Yeah.
being born and being told, "Hello, welcome to the UK"? No.
A little voice whispers in your ear. We've all forgotten it at this age, but like a little voice whispers in your ear and it's just like, you're in Britain now. And that's why you just cry for the first like 10 years. Um, Welcome to Red Planet. I hope everyone's breathing good air and better air in the future under socialism, I hope. We're going to start the show with the thing we always start the show with, which is Mule. Since we've got no Tim this week, just us. Mule, what is the most based thing you did this week?
Well, to be honest, it's been another week of doing pretty much nothing. I can't say that I've done any based organizing this week whatsoever. I just think the most base thing that I've done is try and speak with clarity on my stream about the direct result of imperialist policy and USA hegemon and how that's going around the world and the unsustainable unsustainability of what Donald Trump is trying to do in the USA at the minute. I think that's the broad strokes. No actual based stuff. No, I genuinely cannot think of anything. So it's kind of a good relief, right? Because it did used to be embarrassing when I just used to be like, yeah, I've done this and this and this and this and this. So this is good. It's broadly good for the show. It's the ebb and flow of capacity in
Gives the rest of us a
organising.
chance.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, there's nothing else for me to say. So, Soph, what's the most base thing you've done this week?
Yeah, I think the ebb and flow is an important thing for people to appreciate, right? Like everyone's always talking about burnout, but we should appreciate more that the solution to that is to have rest periods and to chill and then do stuff and then chill. You're not always going to hit the perfect balance and just be doing the right level of stuff forever. It's
Oh yeah,
okay to chill sometimes. And
absolutely.
so this week I've also been chilling and done very little. A friend came to visit me and my partner, and we had a great time. And so not much this week, but I missed last week, so I can actually speak to something last week because I provided the food for a meeting, and I have been excited to do this for ages. Like specifically this org, and specifically an org of this size. Like I've provided food in organizing contexts before when we did the ZAD doc. I cooked dinner. Well, we all cooked dinner together for like 12 people. But yeah, it was just a sadly, it wasn't a cooking thing. I really wanted to be cooking for everyone. I hope I get to do that in future. It was a big trip around the supermarket with my partner. And yeah, it was pretty chill. The main thing was I was like halfway through doing the shop and I was like, this is a getting to know you meeting, and I don't want to be known as the transgender with the stinky breath, and I didn't brush my teeth. So my partner very kindly went and got a toothbrush and toothpaste while we were shopping, but not on org budget. It's not we've not charged them. For me to brush my teeth in the bathroom when we got to the meeting. But then on the way to the meeting, the milk fucking exploded, and now I have a baseball cap that I quite like wearing that is completely soggy with milk. And that's my soggy milk hat
No.
story, everyone.
Oh
You can,
no.
the point of the story is that you can do good stuff and feel proud of it, and also face disaster that ruins your life forever because you have to wash your hat and get the get the milk out of it.
Can't wear your favorite hat for a
I
bit.
was just I was just looking at it and I was like, this is soggy with something. It's not that wet outside. And I was like, oh no, it's on other stuff. Oh, my hat's full of milk.
Oh
Anyway,
no.
so it can be as little as feeding some people, but we really know that here on the show that feeding people is actually quite big. But we want to know what based things you, the audience, have been doing. You can get to us on all the social media sites, or you can send an email directly to based@redplanetshow.com. Please include your name and pronouns, and if you're cool with it, we'll talk about it in a later episode. We may even end up interviewing you if it's something really cool that you're doing. We've done this before on the show. We love hearing that our audience are doing cool stuff, cool and based stuff. But now we're on to the news. Mule, you're telling us about what's happening in the Arabian Sea.
Yeah, it's definitely not terrifying and doom pilling and all that kind of stuff, but it is, again, this is the reality of imperial hegemony globally. So, this is the news about the US assembling a huge, tremendous armada, quote there from the paedophile president himself, in the Arabian Sea. Trump has boasted this week that he was sending a tremendous armada to the Middle East, directly threatening Iran and Khamenei, with those being the same words he used to describe the warships in the Caribbean before the abduction of Nicolas Maduro. Iran has responded with multiple statements reminding the USA that if it dares to attack Iran, it would respond with a region-wide war. This being said in a tweet from Ali Khamenei's account earlier today. The region-wide war is a reference to what Gulf states have been begging Trump to avoid since the escalations toward Iran started from the US earlier this month, in which Iran would target the oil fields and US bases of any nation state housing US troops, which include Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and more. They have also been threatening to carry out a blockade of the Straits of Hormuz, through which 20 to 25% of the world's gas and oil trade flows through, respectively. So that would obviously have a massive effect on imperial core countries' economies. A news report from Press TV, which is an Iranian state TV publication, was also published, showing the capabilities of Iran's missile range, which shows what most of us already know who are interested in the region and the conflict that has happened there in between Israel and Iran back in June, which is that Iran has the capability to target every country in the region with great accuracy, and particularly Israel. It is well within the realms of possibility that Iran could cause huge damage to the imperial core stability in its home regions, crippling oil production in Gulf states and massively damaging US military presences in them. It is, however, what is looking more likely, also well within the realms of possibility, that the US is going to successfully attempt another Maduro-style kidnapping of Khamenei. This is what most Israeli media channels and politicians are calling for, citing the US's success in Venezuela and their apparent involvement in co-opting recent protest movements in Iran. What happens remains to be seen, but the consequences of a wider war in the region indicate a possibility of material conditions in the imperial core getting considerably worse as a result. So, obviously, there's a lot of people who are, I mean, this is a fairly decent sort of mix segue in between these two news stories, but people are talking about, oh, he's going to bomb Iran because of the Epstein files leak. And it's like, well, sure, but he was definitely going to do it anyway. Like, this has all been being said. I don't know, maybe, you could argue that he was pretending, sorry, not pretending, he was preparing for the next leak. He was preparing for the next file dump and, doing his best to distract amongst this. But I don't know how you feel about it, Soph, but to me, it feels like Donald Trump's ego has gone beyond the realm of needing to distract from something like this. So
I I just generally feel wary of any. Okay, here it is. Earlier today, a friend told me that someone she organizes with has started listening to some fucking podcaster and now thinks that your party going badly and the stuff going badly there is because Jeremy Corbyn is a Zionist plant in the left who has been coordinating the party failing on purpose to to stop anti-Zionism. And And the thing I'm always saying to Mule, everyone, whenever we talk about like um conspiracy theories together, is like I'm always saying this, right? Like it's a powerless worldview. Like
Yeah,
whenever we like the frustration when like real like forces, like, covert forces exist in the world, the frustration is that like some of them are doing some shit. There are some cops in our movement. Like they are there and they are causing havoc. Having spoken to people who were in the movement decades ago and read from people who were in the movement hundreds of years ago, there are there are definitely agents of the state, but we become powerless when we try and fixate on them because it's just like you see them everywhere. And in the same
right.
way, like seeing in very much the same way, seeing how Trump manipulates spectacle and going, he's doing this just to distract from this, which was just to distract from this, which was just to distract from this. It's like he isn't actually like perfectly coordinating and pulling all the strings all the time. Like if you care about a thing, you're just gonna have to stand on business. You're just gonna have to go, I am spending my time now on organizing community ice rapid response, on cooking food for people. You know what I care the most about is like them not installing the Shah. So I'm actually going to organize with Iranians who are opposing the Shah. Or what I care most about is Palestine. So I'm going to organize with people who are opposing the genocide in Gaza. Like this, right? Like you just have to decide where to use your time. And like it's like takes like this when I hear people be like, he's doing this just to distract from this. As much as I literally myself have said like, uh well, he's going to bomb Iran next then. Like when it came out, I definitely said that. But when people are offering it as their take, I'm quite like, what do I do with that? Like, what does that do to change anything about how we should move or strategy or anything? We have to be thinking strategically at this point. Like, there's too much on the line to just be like only trying to produce a take or like a snarky soundbite about the
Yeah.
news. Like, that's
But
not what people on the left should be doing with platforms at this point.
But leftism is just about pointless rhetoric and posting stuff on the internet, so I think that that's fine, isn't it? No, yeah, absolutely, of course. I do think that that is a perfect segue into the next news story. You're gonna know what it is. Tell us what it
Yep, we all
is.
know.
We all
Yep, I've
know.
titled this story Epstein Files. They're out there. Are you in them? We hope not. Um, 3 million Epstein files have been published, and there, as with the last upload, there was some shenanigans about things being up and then down. I think they knew that that wasn't going to fly, or that people would have already got them, so they might as well just put them back up again. Some especially like crazy ones. Anyway, Trump, Clinton, Musk, many of the ruling elites and celebrities have been implicated. It's truly like very enormous in scope, and we're gonna have to talk about it from a few different dimensions, I think, because of the size of the dump of files and like the stuff that's covered in them. I think that it's helpful for us to first talk about um, them dumping this huge load of files on us. Where before they gave us quite a small amount, and everyone knew it was not enough. And I said at the time, this is a limited hangout. It's a known thing in the intelligence community. You give people just a snippet, just enough to get people forming their own narratives and not be able to properly grab onto anything with the amount that they don't know. And now it's the opposite, where it's just like overwhelming. And the evidence for this is that they have included just like tons of shit. They're like, sure, like technically is definitely like it's case files relating to the Epstein case, but it being in the public domain is it's stuff like anonymous tips in some case, literally anonymous in some cases, that just like could literally be someone who's having a mental health crisis and believes in QAnon shit. So a bunch of the stuff that's completely insane that's said in the files is just kind of we're not going to know for now what's going to come of it. We're going to be able to talk a little bit about that though. In terms of the scale in several different ways, one of the immediate things is, yeah, there's some incredibly horrible shit in there. If it's not your job to go look at it in any way, you don't gotta, don't worry about it. Um, but like, yeah, just incredibly horrible details of the broader operation of Little St. James and the child sex trafficking that Epstein and clearly Trump and many others were involved in, and many emails from illiterate 4chan troll pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. What a life. Where it's just people chatting with him. And this is kind of the other dimension of scope and scale that's coming out now, is that like we are seeing a huge political angle to this, which is like how much, and we were already aware of some of it because of like the Dark Enlightenment guys, the Richard Dawkins through to Jeffrey, not Jordan Peterson, kind of like science adjacent guys who are turning reactionary in the public eye. This we already knew they had a lot of ties to Epstein. Uh, Now it's becoming more and more clear that Epstein was trying to, through like working closely with uh, uh, people of the kind of Trump projects to push culture in a direction that was just generally more reactionary because he knew that far-right beliefs and being a pedophile line up perfectly, and that if the world gets more far right, he'll be able to do more child sex abuse. What other notes to hit before we go to the discussion?
On the 4chan thing, yeah, the implications of that are insane because they also line up with the implications from last year when there was the 4chan hack, and it was revealed that the most popular kind of account on 4chan by like a country mile was from the country Israel. It's like,
Yes, they're just yeah. Um, the 4chan thing you're alluding to, I should cover, I should describe properly for listeners who don't know, that Jeffrey Epstein clearly had quite an evolved relationship with Christopher Mootpool, the founder of 4chan, and seems to have influenced some decisions in the site and its culture, including the reopening of the politics discussion board and the pushing of I mean, look, let's just be straightforward about this. 4chan is a site for pedophiles and has like you has an unfortunate amount of influence over the rest of the internet and its history and culture. And opening a politics discussion board on a site for pedophiles so they can discuss how to make a world that's better for pedophiles is yeah, it's all part of the same project. This leads us to probably the first part of the discussion, which would be QAnon is real. Is the note that I have, but let me caveat properly. A bunch of the insane shit from the files looks just like QAnon. Like it's just like children being auctioned by the rich and powerful as part of a massive project of rape and abuse. Um, and it seems like quite likely that Epstein and 4chan people and the MAGA right were all kind of coordinating, pushing extreme outlandish conspiracy theories about child sex abuse rings among the rich and powerful to make it sound stupid to people when when people talk about the real actual stuff that's going on.
yeah.
Uh, that's crazy making. Mule, do you have a take on that part of it? Because I don't.
I
I'm
I
just a bit
mean
flabbergasted.
I mean that this is the thing, right? And I have always said this, unfortunately, conspiracy theorists, no matter how insane they have a fundamental point at the very root of their politics, which is that something is deeply, deeply wrong in this world, and everybody knows it. And as we've said many times on the show, obviously, the thing that is wrong is capitalism and imperialist hegemony. And, you know, if you're a leftist, you can look at this stuff and go, yeah, this is the end point of capitalism, where they're all just like selling our kids to each other and fucking abducting them and, you know,
And
doing all
also
kinds of.
important injection here, like the things that are wrong also include misogyny, patriarchy, right? Like, and this is the end point of that as well. As a
All
bunch of
goes
the
hand in
richest,
hand.
most powerful men, they think, what's the thing I want to do that if I have special access to a place only rich guys can go, what do we do there? And it's like, obviously, it's treat women as property and rape children. Like
Absolutely.
that's the obvious conclusion of patriarchy.
Yeah. And there is also
But
stuff in there that
oh,
says that the anti-trans you know, push in the mid
mhm.
2010s is also
Yep.
something that has likely been pushed because they were you know, completely interested in using trans women as sex slaves. There's like stuff in there that talks about, the benefits of a trans woman
Mhm.
in living out your fantasies, which is just completely fucking insane.
Yeah, it really turned my stomach. So two final notes on this. One is that Britain is in utter shambles because Andrew Windsor Manbotton or whatever is even more implicated, and he's probably going to have to go to court. And there's a bunch of photos of him looming over a girl on the floor, and a bunch of more allegations about insane shit he did. And it seems he also invited Jeffrey Epstein to Buckingham Palace. It's currently unclear if Jeffrey Epstein went to Buckingham Palace, but the invite did happen. I guess we'll find that out eventually. Yeah, I think I just want to cap this off by saying, like, the biggest thing this all shows is the bourgeoisie acting as a class. I saw someone giving this take on Blue Sky, and I think it's exactly spot on. Seeing the bourgeoisie engage in their violent delights, right? Like seeing them coordinate around it, be conscious of the secrecy, but also the blackmail that they have available to them through doing it, and then arrange cultural shifts in politics that they are funding and pushing and propagating towards far right ideas because it protects their ability to be monstrous pedophiles. Uh, yeah, it's a fascinating cultural collection of like it's an anthropology of the rich and powerful has just been landed in our laps. So remember, everyone, until further updates, the ruling class of pedophiles. That's all we need to know. Um, well, let's talk about some positive developments, which is people going hat in hand, groveling, drooling before President Xi.
Oh
Mule,
yeah,
tell us about China and
yeah.
its relations.
Yeah, it's great stuff. First, it was Marx Carney. Now it's Keith Starlin. That's right, against heavy criticism from opposition party members and the paedophile president Donald Trump. Keir Starmer this week embarked on his visit to China, planning on visiting Beijing, Shanghai, and several other places as part of a diplomatic meeting to improve trade relations. On the visit, Starmer met with CPC representatives, including Xi Jinping, who've agreed on a trade deal prioritizing visa-free travel for UK citizens to China for trips of under 30 days, lifting Chinese sanctions against several UK MPs, and in return, granting Chinese business access to the UK's service market. And there's some extra little bits and pieces that I haven't included in this report. However, the deal, while small, represents a massive shift in the economic order and was initiated more broadly by Mark Carney, as I alluded to before, the president of Canada, only a week or two. Sorry, not president. He's the prime minister, isn't he? They still have that layover. Sorry, the Prime Minister of Canada, only a week or two before. In engaging with diplomacy and softer relations with China, the UK not only symbolically is a colonizer begging its former victims for better relations and less strict trade, but also another major power moving away from the USA and towards one of the main members of the BRICS coalition. More generally, it appears that Starmer and his aides have decided to give him a shot of the good stuff before doing political engagements since Trump became more aggressive towards Europe, with him leading a strangely effective House of Commons appearance in Prime Minister's questions, challenging the attacks of Kemi Badenoch, accusing him of being soft on foreign policy with surprising energy and efficacy for the world's wettest dickhead. And he has had what appears to be the semblance of a modicum of a spine in recent interviews when it comes to defending the UK's foreign policy decisions against criticisms of its master Trump. Obviously, the UK political system and Labour are the worst in modern history and facing a supreme challenge at the minute against third with the Greens and fourth with Reform Party competition, and even fifth and sixth when it comes to independence parties such as Plaid Cymru and the SNP, and rightly so. But in terms of a British political establishment and the ruling class, there has been a huge change in stance towards China that is yet another dub for the fight against capitalist, imperialist, white supremacist hegemony. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Soph. It's obviously China building a lot of soft power, where the US is losing a lot of it.
Yeah, kind of a my more serious thought. I've never been a huge fan of Deng, but I've been like coming around seeing you repeatedly be like Dengism is working. This is just it. I'm like I can't argue that it's working. Um, but the thing I wanted to say that was funny when I saw all this reporting was that the BBC tried to pass off like there was a lot of reporting in China about this visit as like this is a positive for Britain, and it's like, Bud, I'm sure they're not saying this literally, but if it's a big deal to them that Britain is here, it's not because like, whoa, Britain, we're so impressed by Britain. Oh my God, oh Britain, will you sign my autograph book? Like, no, it's look who's come fucking crawling back. Look what the cat dragged in. These motherfuckers used to own parts of our country. They fought 2 wars to force us to get addicted to opium, and now they're coming in here like, please, I need goods. I need manufactured goods, please. Um, yeah, it's gonna be incredibly vindicating and cathartic, I'm sure, for a lot of a lot of Chinese statesmen.
Yeah,
That's my thought.
100%. Tell us about Venezuela and what is going on there.
It's just a brief one, but it's. I wanted to give us an update because I think it's important to say that. So, acting President Delcy Rodriguez has now signed a bill which is opening up Venezuelan oil to privatization, and privatization, according to the most dogmatic free market ideologues, should mean opening up to be bought and sold freely. But it's not. It's under U.S. control. Like Marco Rubio has been talking explicitly about the plans for how Venezuelan oil will be managed, how it will be sold, and how the money from its sale will be used, including like some statements on Venezuela's policies and how they will use the money. So it's like the kidnapping of Maduro has clearly led to a kind of round defeat for Venezuela in this way. And yeah, it's just horrible to see the effectiveness of this like new the potentially the very frightening potential effectiveness of this new era of completely blatant and undisguised imperial plunder. Like the only step up from this would be invading because they want the territory and taking the oil without paying. Like this is like the only move Venezuela has right now to avoid being invaded by the US military, the most well-funded military on Earth. So, like, yeah, I think it's just a very clear and stark message that this is what they'll do to their enemies. And I think that it's very important that the whole world takes it as a message that we're going to have to build a stronger resistance against America or or else be on their leash, basically. Um, it's a bit of a grim one, but I felt like it was important after the speculation of where the kidnapping would lead to give that update. Um, Before we go on to the guest segment, it's important to remind everyone that this is a show made possible by our supporters on Patreon. The Red Planet Patreon is available at patreon.com/red_planet. There are a bunch of different tiers available, but we'll tell you more about them later. The most important thing I think to say now is that the show is, yeah, it happens because people pay us, and that money makes the show happen, and the money is making things like the Zad documentary happen. It's in the pipeline. We're editing it now. And hopefully it will make more stuff happen in future, but only if you can, if we can get that support. So please, if you're a long-term viewer or listener, check out the Patreon and support us there. It's again patreon.com/red_planet.
Cool. And now
Mule, do
we
you want to
are.
intro the? Sorry.
Yes. Sorry. No, it's all right. There's a bit of a delay today. It's a bit, yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, so now onto our guest and our main segment for today. Rising tensions in the US have meant that people have been urged into organizing, whether they like it or not, in some cases. And today we're speaking to an organizer in the US, Bret, also known as Cinemarxism on Twitch, to talk about ICE rapid response and the ins and outs of organizing, particularly around this current state repression. Bret, good to have you. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
Hi, Brett.
Good, good, great to see you. Yeah, so as you know, obviously we've got you on to talk about the organizing that you do with, ICE Rapid Response in Kansas City, and just generally, what kind of advice that you would give to people and what is going on. But just before we, get into the nitty gritty of what needs to be done and what is being done, give us a bit of a sort of a general introduction about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And then on from that, what ICE Rapid Response does.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Brett. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a documentary cinematographer by trade, actually. So like that's where I was making, most of my money uh for the like last decade or so. More recently though, in the last like 2 years, I've been doing Twitch streaming and talking about, doing political coverage, talking about organizing on Twitch. And really with I think what makes my stream unique is that we try to focus on power from the bottom up and try to like bring people who I think have the right worldview and have like the tools and the desire to get involved, but maybe don't know the first steps and don't know like why. It's not enough to just like have the correct opinion on the internet. We have to actually go out there and build power and participate
It's
in
wait, it's
politics.
not.
I,
Oh
I, I
no.
regret to inform you. Yeah.
I had a really good take about that as well. What a shame. Yeah, so no, that and this is again like when I first saw your stream, I was like, yeah, he's perfect for Red Planet. This is our mission statement as well. Absolutely, it's about getting people off the internet into the streets and organizing and just meeting their neighbors, like even more
Yeah.
broadly speaking. So yeah, talk to us a bit more about that and like your sort of give us a bit of an introduction into what is going on with you organizing wise and ICE Rapid Response in Kansas City.
Yeah, so I organize with a lot of different organizations in Kansas City, one of which is KC Tenants, which is the largest tenant union in the United States. And there's a lot of really incredible things being done in tenant organizing in Kansas City. But I think what more specifically, like when we're talking about rapid response, that is a tactic that has been developed and like adopted by immigrant communities going back to Trump 1.0 and before that, right? So this is not some like new thing that like that was like theorized and brought in. This is a practice and a tactic that the people who are most affected by this struggle have identified as the best way to protect and prevent deportations. And so I learned about rapid response shortly after Trump's first election, like reading some articles about some like defenses that happened at workplace raids in Koreatown in LA. And shortly after Trump's election in Los Angeles, when I was living there at the time, there's also like a mass leftist organization coalition forming. And so I got to see like the very beginnings of that formation and kind of just like was like really like, wow, this tactic is being adopted. This is like something that a lot of different orgs are identifying as like the way forward. And so I kind of went full speed ahead with it. And, we got displaced from Los Angeles like after the fires, where, a lot of people, when we think of the LA fires, like there's, people who obviously like lost their homes and everything. And the way that the landlord class in Los Angeles responded to that was to price gouge all rent, like basically citywide by like 20%. And so we were in my partner and I were in a difficult financial space and couldn't really afford to live in the apartment we were in and couldn't afford to move anywhere else because of this gouging. And so we decided to look elsewhere, and Kansas City was where we ended up. And so yeah, when we moved here, it was immediately I wanted to reach out to the immigrant rights organizations and see what kind of organizing was being done around rapid response and to my like to everybody's benefit, this was like very well developed already. They were already doing like mass trainings and it's really just been like reaching out to them and saying like, what do you need? How can I help? And what like help to build this network and so it's come a long way since like a year ago when I moved here and first developed in it, and like the structures are really expanding, and we're all learning from places like Los Angeles and Charlotte and Minneapolis and New Orleans. Like I think all these tactics are developing like really quickly, and hopefully we can like learn from each other and share these like lessons that we're learning, right?
Dope. Yeah, absolutely. Makes total sense. And just for people who may not fully understand what ICE rapid response is or means, could you just give a quick primer on like what that looks like? And like, yeah, particularly considering that we do have some bruvs and Europeans and people outside of America watching and listening.
Yeah, totally. And thanks for, yeah, it's always good to like go, to explain the concepts that we're talking about. So rapid response is basically a tactic within a larger like community defense, like framework, right? Where we are saying that we keep us safe. We acknowledge that like there's likely nobody coming to save us from these attacks of state violence, like, and it's on us to protect ourselves. And so, community defense, I think, takes on a lot of different, it takes on a lot of different tactics in this moment in ICE. But one of the tactics is rapid response. And so, what rapid response is essentially that, like a community, a group of people will create a hotline, a phone number that any that they share widely, and that hopefully everybody in their city has this number in their phone. And if ICE is seen, people are trained to call the hotline, report what they see in a very like specific and actionable way, and then that report is then distributed to a larger community of people who are also trained to go and to document and to just like kind of watch and document what ICE is doing. And this is really, really effective at preventing deportations because ICE is not following the law. Like ICE is routinely breaking laws. They're routinely breaking constitutional, rights that we have, and in doing that, they're compromising their cases, right? So if we can get in really clear documentation that they're violating the law when they break open somebody's door and go grab somebody out of a house that they don't have a warrant for, that can keep people out of jail. That can keep people, safe. And so yeah, that's essentially the tactic of rapid response. But again, like it's I think people think of rapid response and they think of it as like this like confrontation. I think like a huge misconception in this tactic, and hopefully something that when you go to a training, you like develop a more holistic view of, is that this is a work of care, and like we are showing up, like how many people can have a person that they or a phone number that they can call, and they have somebody who has their back who's going to show up in like 3 to 5 minutes, right? Like that's a radical thing to be able to offer people, and like when we do that, we're demonstrating solidarity. We're creating trust within our communities, and we're showing people that we don't need these state actors to protect us. We don't need them. Like we got us, and like that. There's a lot of power in that, and yeah, I think like what we're seeing in Minneapolis is like a great example of that too, right? Like there's just like, in Minneapolis, these blocks, like these signal groups are block based. So it's like every block has a signal group. And then there's like these blocks are coming together and making neighborhood signal groups and like organizing it in a neighborhood level. And then the neighborhoods are coming together in the city to form like these general assemblies. And like there's a kind of like just genuine like we got each other and we can figure this out democratically that I think is going to change American politics forever. Like I think the power building that's happening right now is really breathtaking.
I really hope so. I think you could be right about that, and I'm hoping that you are. I wanted to compare what you've been describing with the rapid response tactic specifically to something that is like does happen in the UK at the moment, which is anti-raids network. Like it's very similar in terms of what you're describing. It's basically just what we call it, but like I think that the extreme pressure of the Trump 2 like regime approach to like just laying siege to cities has brought out like a cohering of community, like
Mm.
especially when I was talking about this on Substack earlier this week, I said like when especially ICE is grabbing people out of their cars, grabbing people who are alone, it seems like the only sensible thing is for people to be a block. And that's like very much lacking, I think, in like immigrant solidarity networks and organizing in the UK. So I guess I'd like to hear from you about like you're not in Minnesota, but like at your perspective as someone who is somewhere else in the US, how much of the kind of because I've seen people talking about what's happening in Minneapolis, very cohered, very like everything is really coming together. Yeah, how do you feel like that's going in in your city, in your state? And do you have a sense for how it's going across the country, that kind of cohering of community and changing to a different model, ideally, that hopefully enables us to do things like general strikes?
Yeah, so I think all of that is really interesting, and I would love to hear more about the anti-raid networks too in the UK. That's something I don't know hardly anything about. I'd love to hear you talk more. Yeah, so I can speak specifically to like Kansas City. So, this is a moment of like coalition building, and I think that's something that's like been really beautiful to see, especially in Kansas City. And I know it's happening in Los Angeles and Minneapolis. But it's a lot of like orgs that are united in a shared interest of like fighting against the rise of fascism in America right now, are putting aside like more petty grievances with each other to like unite around specific things, right? And so like something that I would have never seen before, like or in when I was organizing in Los Angeles was like PSL and DSA are doing events together, like and I like that's incredible to me. I love to see that, and so I think these coalitions are building on like the organizational scale, but I think what's like even more transformative is just like so in July of last year, Casey Tenants partnered with a local immigration org, and we held like a mass training for like 250 people. And through that training, we did like the full rapid response, how to respond to ICE, what the moment is, and then we broke everybody off into like neighborhood groups. And in those neighborhood groups, we gave them like a worksheet that was like, here's how you can create your block watch, and like they and so we had from that group we had like a dozen different autonomous neighborhood organizations that just like went off and continued organizing on their own. And that's looked really different in different parts of the city, right? And it's the same thing in Minneapolis. Like some blocks in Minneapolis are creating barricades at the ends of their streets, and they're saying ICE does like can't come through here. If you're a local, you live on the block, like we'll move the barricade and you can drive through, but like ICE is not welcome and they're not going to come here. In other places, it's probably a lot more like mutual aid, where they're like just providing groceries to neighbors that don't feel safe to go outside. Yeah, so like there's so many different ways that this can look, and I think that's like kind of the beauty of the structure is just like taking like a block and being like, "Hey, can you go knock on every single one of your doors, neighbors' doors, and like get a vibe check on who's like gonna be like, who's gonna be an ally in this fight?" And then invite all those allies over, have food, build
Yeah.
like trust, build community, eat together. Like this kind of like community building is exactly what the fascists don't understand, and like they continually demonstrate their their like their lack of appreciation for this. And this is like to me is really like our secret weapon, is that we can build this trust, we can provide for each other, we can take care of each other, we can protect each other. And like I think a lot of that work is that work of care, of just like being there and like relearning how to be in community with each other, exactly as you described.
That's really, really heartening to hear. To answer your earlier question, anti-raids networks are like very similarly mostly exist through group chats. And like it's about people, being able to give anonymous tips. Anyone who's in one will be watching out all the time for like, it'll be one for your region. Say like Southeast London is where I live. And whenever you just spot an immigration van literally anywhere, just immediately texting the location, the direction it's going, and the license plate, and then we can coordinate like knowing where people are and watching out, and then hopefully countering stuff. And usually, like I think the legal differences and the differences in policing make a big difference. But broadly, it's quite similar in terms of documenting, in terms of making sure people know their rights, in terms of being with people. Sometimes there have been cases of people either forming human blockades to stop police getting to immigrants. Sometimes it has been people forming blockades to stop them leaving with people and doing it for such a long time that they have to let them go. There was quite a famous one a few years ago now, just south of where I live in Peckham, um, where about 200 neighbors showed up to stop a guy being taken by the Home Office and left like chanting, "Don't come back to Peckham," like forcing our ICE. Like they are literally, the acronym is the same, like ICE, like forcing them out of the neighborhood. But there have been many like generally like victories like that, and many losses as well. But I think the biggest issue is this community stuff, and that's why I was asking about it because I think like we on the show are very familiar with the need for the one of the Zadistes said to us the virtuous cycle. Community upholds the struggle frees more people
Mm,
that who can be in community, and it goes on and it builds.
mm,
And that's something we've seen on the Zad. We doing a documentary about a liberated territory in this southwestern France, where some people just squatted a bunch of wetland where they were going to build an airport, and they fought the cops and they won. And it's going to be the first English language documentary about the Zad there is. So one of the people said there, and it's just something that's generally obvious when we were there, is just how much like being in community and learning the basic human skills of like, as you were saying, conflict resolution, coalition building, being able to set aside differences to recognize you have the same goal and achieve it together. I think by contrast, like that's us on the show, we know that, but we Brits, I think there's like such a deep sense of capitalist realism in a culture that is so open about class warfare and about treating the working class like shit and like scum. That like the refrain of like it's shit and it's meant to be shit here really captures a lot of people's minds, including like figures who are like public figures who are leftists, who are still just ultimately like completely doom-pilled and have no interest in telling people to like do anything because it's all just shit. Um,
There's
I'm
really
not,
not a lot of Brits talking about how you should organize.
yeah,
There's like a staggering lack
yeah,
of it.
a real lack of it.
Yeah.
But I think, in the interest of optimism of the spirit, like I do believe that in time, British culture will change in response to crisis, and we'll get there too. But it is a really striking difference. Like we have the group chats for people to run out and do their thing, but we don't have that community, and that's really lacking.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add on to what Sophie's saying is one, we've got a great episode where we spoke to a guy who like wrapped himself around a tire of an ice van in the UK to stop it from leaving. So I would recommend checking out that interview. That was from a couple of years ago. And also, yeah, like a lot of the discourse that you're going to see online, if you're not in the UK, you'll hear a lot of the fucking reactionary right in the UK saying things like, "We need ice in the UK, we need ice," and it's like, we've got it, man. Like it's here. Like you're asking for a thing that we've got. They just
Hmm.
aren't as funded and aren't as armed and aren't as brazen as how they operate in the US. So like, really, what they're asking for is more funding for our ice. But anyway, yeah, that's just a bit of the British side of it. But just going back to your organising, Bret, I think that there's so many questions that I've got to ask you. I really hope we've got time for him because honestly, this is just fascinating and really like hope pilling. Um, Obviously, you've spoken about how and why you started organizing with Ice Rapid Response, what it does, what like sort of like how it's organized in a brief way. But I think what I'm really interested in as well is you spoke about like one of the main things is like when you see ice, and yeah, obviously from a British point of view, when you look at the news, it's like, well, yeah, you can see them because they're wearing the plate carriers, they have a mask on, probably not a helmet, they've got maybe like a gun, like it seems like a ragtag kind of militia looking thing, but broadly they will have like a DHS thing on or whatever. What would you say is the way to identify ICE? Because obviously there's going to be situations where they're in cars and shit like that. How does that go?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think this is like another big part of this organizing is educating and like training our people, right? Like there's I would say like a lot of my time in doing this organizing is like planning trainings, executing trainings, like going out, speaking to like big groups and like we have like a curriculum on how to report, how to show up, like what's the best, what are the best tactics in this. And I think that training is really critical. And part of that is learning how to identify ice. And I think it's like still a struggle. Like I think I've heard this from a lot of different rapid responses around the nation is that like ice is being like it's intentional too, right? Like they are trying to obscure themselves and they're trying not to like draw attention to themselves. They're changing their plates and they're masking and stuff, right? So I think like the biggest identifiers are going to be the plate carriers. Like I think they're like these are cowards and they're scared of they think of everything as like a threat to their lives, and so they will not go outside without like a plate carrier on, and that's something that like even like you'll see local police wearing it, but the uniforms of local police are usually pretty identifiable. Um, there are
There's a
also
bit
like
of
a lot of
lob to it too, right? They they
what's
they
that?
want to look like serious soldiers as well, like as well as being scared.
Yeah, I think there's a part of that, and then also just like an excess of like like expired military gear and stuff that has been funneled into these institutions as well that they just love to use. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is kind of the plate carrier. Occasionally they will have like police or ICE or some DHS or something like that on there. But another thing is that like there's a lot of different federal law enforcement agencies in the United States, right? So we have like HSI, like these are just doing immigration. HSI, CBP, even like USCIS, like these are all like and then there's even like the U.S. Marshals and like there's so many different kinds, FBI, DEA, and really all of these federal agencies are doing immigration enforcement right now. Like so like previously, I think in the United States, like during Trump 1.0, even these all of these departments had their own responsibilities and were doing their own thing. But it seems like right now everything is just ethnic cleansing campaign. Like
Yeah.
that's their basic like directive right now. So
Some people have been reporting on the presence of Bortak being the most aggressive and deeply frustrating situations when coming across ice, and as you say, more broadly DHS personnel who are doing these ethnic cleansing campaigns. What would you say is the reality of Bortak on the ground? Obviously, there's probably going to be a disparity between Kansas City because, correct me if I'm wrong, there isn't a focus on Kansas City right this second, but there
right.
certainly is in Minneapolis or the Twin Cities, and obviously Bortak have been seen there. And these are the guys that are basically trained to just like kill people. Like, obviously ICE are also trained to do whatever they want and act outside of the law, but BORTAC is specifically like, I can't remember what it stands for. It's like border tactical or
Hmm.
something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us a bit about like BORTAC and like their presence in this and how that changes stuff.
Yeah, so in Kansas City they have like I mean we're not seeing anywhere near the kind of escalation that we are seeing. There's still immigration enforcement going on that we're responding to, but we're really like planning for that eventual like massive invasion. But yeah, in places like Los Angeles and Minneapolis, it's been a lot different. And Bortak, I can't really speak to like in specific about Bortak or anything. I think if I'm being honest, like I think a lot of the things that I try to do is try to like get people to. I mean, there's like importance in understanding distinctions in behavior for our own safety and stuff like that. But like, I think really like uh I want people to like not I want people to think of like all law enforcement as being united in this struggle, right? And so like yeah, there may be differences in how in the violence that they're willing to use and like the scale of everything, but like even local police across the country, local police are showing up and they're facing the protesters. They're turning their back to ICE and they're facing the protesters, and that tells you everything you need to know. They're not there to protect you. They're not there to like to stop ICE from doing anything, and they likely never will be. Like we should never count on that ever happening. Like and so yeah, I think with specifically with like CBP, which I think Border Patrol or BORTAC is under. I think they have like 100 mile like radius around borders that they have to like that they really have jurisdiction in. I've heard some like legal arguments that would include like international like airports and stuff, which would extend it a lot. But we haven't really seen CBP be deployed inside of that or outside of that. I think maybe like Minneapolis is like right on the line or something like but yeah, for Kansas City, we are very far away from any kind of border. We're basically as
Yeah.
far as you can be away.
Right in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yeah, that's fair enough. I'm glad that you pointed that out because, yeah, I think that we can get like a little lost in the weeds when we try and make these distinctions. And it's kind of like, yeah, they're all just cops, right? They're all just fucking state
Yeah.
thugs who are like, it doesn't matter. You get the lowest sheriff who doesn't have to do a fucking exam of any kind, displaying any kind of, efficiency for the role, who will just kill someone because they're allowed to do that by the state. And then you've got like the highest trained individuals who will also do the same. They're all the same.
If there is any beefing between local law enforcement and ICE, it will only be if ICE like is personally bad to the cops. Like them and their local law enforcement unit specifically, like it won't be on principle, it won't be anything to do with the the population. It will just be a like I think there's been some jurisdictional beefs where some
Mm.
of them they've been mad because ICE is getting custody of their prisoners, which is
Yeah.
just gross, but like yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I do want to say is like I feel like a lot of this like community defense and rapid response work. I think a lot. I hear a lot. It talked a lot. Or I hear people talk a lot about it, like in the terms of like, oh well, imagine what this could build into in the future. Imagine how we could use this to create safety in other contexts with local police, right? Like, and like honestly, I want to move. I want us to like start thinking about like why should we build it and then change it later. Like, let's build it now. Filming people who are getting arrested by local police can help them in a lawsuit. Like the exact same tactics that we are taking and using against ICE now, like they're effective against local police as well. And for a lot of communities, like specifically for Kansas City, like the local city has no control over the Kansas City Police Department. That is, the Kansas City Police Department is run by the state of Missouri, which is like you know, it's a deeply Republican state government, and like this is a foreign occupying force in our cities right now, and like we also like shouldn't like not there's no reason to compare them, but like people going into the American incarceral system, like that is an unbelievably dangerous and like horrific like system that kills people constantly. Like there, if we're looking at this, like there's no reason that we shouldn't be fighting just as hard for the people that are citizens that are targeted by the violence of the state, in all different kinds, right? Like, and so yeah, I think like using the tools that we're building around ICE, and then using like the general attitudes and like the appetite for like spaces to get involved, especially against ICE. I think we can use that to build community defense that protects everybody, no matter what arm of the state is like wishing to do them harm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought it back round to filming and using that in a legal context, because when we've spoken about organizing here on Red Planet, we have tried to consistently maintain the fact that organizing is a coalition of pragmatic, pragmatic sort of tactics, a pragmatism of tactics, I guess you could say. You have to have a multi-pronged response. So you have, of course, got the very raw reality of a group of people showing up to demonstrate power in the face of this small gang of individuals who are trying to disappear one of your neighbors. That's the demonstration of power. That's the first layer. The second layer is, anything beyond that involves, like you say, filming the police, filming ICE, basically making them accountable in that kind of way. So I want to talk to you about like that sort of like multi-pronged response. Like obviously you've got the element of using it in a legal context, and that directly relates. And you will probably attest to this as well in your tenant union work, because when I was doing member solidarity with Greater Manchester Tenants Union, if ever the cops were to get involved in an eviction, which surprisingly you'll probably learn is very rare in the UK, they just don't, and it's actually a civil thing between landlords and tenants and evictions. So you can resist evictions very efficiently here. But the long and short of it is that like if the cops were to ever get involved, we would film them, and on the rare occasions where they did, we have filmed them and obviously said to our member like, look, we've not been able to protect you today. That's because the cops broke the law. They're not supposed to get involved in this. Do you want to use this? So would you say that that's like a similar thing? And also talk to us a bit more about like the necessity of the multi-pronged approach in stuff like this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like none of this like we have to build things that will protect us, right? Like and like we're fighting against a specific thing that's happening now, but we're also like we need to always be keeping like a goal in mind, and like be building up structures that can last past this moment and like have utility outside of this moment of crisis as well, right? And so I think like when we talk about like tenancy, right? Like, or actually, when we talk about just like citizenship in general, and like the way that citizenship as a like a line that the capitalists use to divide us, like everything in citizen everything that every way that working people are exploited is amplified by being undocumented, right? So like your landlord is going to use that and like exploit that. Your boss is going to use that and exploit that. So we know as like tenant organizers that like undocumented people are some of the most exploited tenants, and like we know that's not right. And if you look at like even in somewhere like for example earlier this year in Chicago, there was a big apartment complex on the south side in South Shore of Chicago. And in the middle of the night, like used a Black Hawk helicopter and rappelled onto the roof and like broke in and just went door to door, breaking down every door they could, and like took out children like naked and zip ties and threw them into a U-Haul. Just like a truly horrific raid. And it was like a week later that we've learned that the landlord called the raid in. Like the landlord was like openly coordinating with ICE to like evict these like their tenants, like. And so yeah, there's a huge overlap between all these things, and we can't just say like, okay, well, we're fighting against ICE, or we're just, we're just fighting against like one aspect of the way that like undocumented people are oppressed, because truthfully, like it is like it has to be a multi-pronged approach, because the way that undocumented people are oppressed in America is incredibly multi-pronged, right? We have to hit them and support them in all of the ways that they're being exploited and they're being, oppressed. And so, I think like, yeah, there's tenant organizing that is benefiting these people, and like we use the tenant union to protect each other and to provide trainings, and there's also like alongside rapid response, there's know your rights trainings, and know your rights is like really important, which is literally just like getting mass distribution of information and reminding people who likely don't know that you can reject ICE if they're knocking on your door. You don't have to open that door. If they don't have a warrant, like they can't enter. Like this is the law. And if you don't open the door and they break in anyway, everything that they find and every person that they find is going to be thrown out in court,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Especially if that's well documented. And so it's like know your rights, it's information sharing. It's also mutual aid, like, in places like Los Angeles and Minneapolis right now, where like they can't leave their houses out of fear. There's like mass fear that's like, in these communities. People are doing grocery deliveries, people are buying out entire like food stands, for families that are struggling. People are paying the rent of undocumented people. And in both places, Los Angeles and Minneapolis, they're fighting really hard for an eviction moratorium, because if people can't go out and earn money, like there's no like it's wrong for the state to throw them out of their houses. Like, like this is a moment of crisis, it's an emergency, and we need to put an eviction moratorium on the map in all of these blue states that pretend to care about the diversity and the lives of these undocumented people.
Yeah, that's a great answer. There's so much to talk about again, as I said. I wonder if I want to just skip real quick and ask this because you've spoken already, I think, about what the key is to resisting ICE abductions and what tactics, are the most effective. But maybe we could talk a little bit. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. Would you say that you've already touched on that, like the most
I mean, I
effective
can
stuff?
still talk. I think
Yeah.
if I had to boil it down to like the most effect, it's just community building. Like it's like actually just it really is just like getting to know your neighbors, relearning how to be in community with each other and how to disagree with each other, and like that's like the answer to fascism is like reconnecting and building together, like building power collectively. Where like fascism wants to engage with us as political actors, as individuals. Like as an individual, we are powerless to Peter Thiel and Donald Trump and all of these like billionaires. Like there's nothing. As an individual, we're useless. We are the powerless. Like but as a collective, and if we build a power together and organize, and take care of each other with like food and celebrate together and build relationships, like we can change everything. Like like we are unbelievably powerful together.
Yes.
So maybe you disagree with this, but I can see kind of three sides here. One is like political demands and campaigning, one is like the immediate defense against ICE and one is community. Like, where do you think the most work is there to be done, and where do you think like, I guess where people should be, yeah, like valuing putting their time? Because that's another thing is we often get questions from people who are like, I don't know how to change people's minds, so I feel like I can't do any organizing. And we have to be like, it's not actually all about like
Mm.
debating people into the right position.
Yeah, totally. That's such a good question. I mean, I don't know. I don't like, I think everybody needs to be doing like not one person needs to do everything, but like we need diversity of tactics. And so like some people are gonna be more interested in doing like an electoral policy based strategy. Like me personally, I don't have hardly any faith in that, and especially living in like a deeply red state, it's just that's not where I want to put my time. But like, yeah, we need the Zorons. We need the like the socialist like election wins that provide people with an example. But to me, I think like again, like my analysis of like power is we have it from the bottom up. Like we don't need to wait around for like a great man or a great person to like come and save us. Like we already have this power, and all we need to do is like organize and build community in order to express it. And so like I think if we are able to build this like these like networks, right? This block watch, the example that we're getting from Minneapolis, where like you're deeply connected with your neighbors, and that group is deeply connected to a neighborhood group. Like this that kind of political like organizing would dominate in any like other context as well. Like when elections come up, like having that kind of coordinated response and like space to have those conversations and be like, well, actually, what is best for my block? What is best for my neighborhood? Like, and giving people the power to like to organize around that. Like, I think that like genuinely, if we invest in this structure, it can solve like a lot of other things down the line when those questions are asked. But like first we have to relearn how to be in community and how to hold like collective space together. Like this is something that we've lost, and like individualism and atomization is like it's been their great plan to eliminate any kind of like collective power building, whether it be unions or anything. And so we are starting from like under the ground. And we have to build up and like grow out of that. So
Yeah, I think like this is something that we've spoken about like pretty, I would say fairly regularly on Red Planet, because the Zad documentary that we're doing that Soph mentioned earlier is one of the most successful left-wing projects in, I guess, Europe in the last, I don't fucking know how many years, we would say maybe like in the last 10 years probably. They fought the gendarmerie in France, which is, a heavily militarized police force, and they won. And, they're there living intentionally now. And one of the things that they always cite as their most powerful part of organizing was the fact that you were able to have assemblies where there was like a dairy farmer sat next to a anti-species vegan, sat next to a bourgeois political electoral system candidate, next to yada yada yada, anarchist, communist, and that's it really, isn't it? And it's one of the most anarchist things that you could do is like breaking down all of those barriers and just organizing together. And building that power collectively is that element that is like, yeah, this is something that is celebrated by both anarchists and communists, and most people who just want something to change. It's like it's not about the ideology per se. It's about, I think, measuring particularly if there's harm going on in the organization. This is where this sort of conversation leads to, where there would be some people who would be like, well, we can't have any Nazis in the movement, and it's like, yeah, that's so obvious, dude. Like, I don't think Nazis like want to be in the movement. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, and if they do like try and infiltrate, it's going to be pretty obvious
yeah.
in a lot of regards. But yeah, speaking about left-wing socialists, I wanted to ask you about Joseph Robinette Biden. Obviously, it's a joke. The you said that you learned and heard of the ICE rapid response organizing after Trump's first term. Now, obviously, a lot of people like to pretend that ICE just kind of faded into the background and didn't really do anything during
They
Biden's
turned
term.
off the big ice switch. It was the first thing
Yeah.
Biden did. He went ka-chunk, and then the first thing Trump did, he turned it back on again.
Yeah, that's it. So I would, yeah, this might not be anything. It might not be a question. And this is me just being curious because, of course, what I remember most, most like obviously about Biden's immigration policy was the images of the horses at the border with the Haitian immigrants, literally like white men, with whips in some cases, whipping black people holding their belongings in a plastic bag. And it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, that happened under Biden. So I wonder if there has been, if these ICE rapid response orgs have been operating under Biden and if there was a difference or anything like that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I think it'd be curious to see. I can't speak for like the whole country, but I can definitely tell you that under, in Kansas City, that this, a lot of these organizations that are doing immigrant rights work, have been doing it for decades, and like, the president definitely changes some context, but it's not changing whether or not they're showing up for themselves and for their community. And so, yeah, I mean, in immigrant-led spaces, like deportation has always been a mobilizing like topic, and I think rapid response is probably something new, and certainly the prevalence and like the appetite for it in like even like the liberal class, I think is a lot higher now than ever, right? And so that explains like how in some neighborhoods in Minneapolis, the like 15% of all adults in the neighborhood are organized into rapid response groups, right? But yeah, so it would have existed, but probably at a much smaller scale and with a lot less like urgency. But yeah, I mean, people have been marching and fighting against the Democrats' deportation policy for a very, very long time. I was marching against deporter in chief, as we called him, like Barack Obama, in like the mid 2010s and stuff. So yeah, this is not a new struggle. America has had this like uh, essentially like a paramilitary ethnic cleansing force for a very long time, and it's an industry. Also, like migrant detention is an industry that has existed in this country that has generated billions of dollars in wealth for the worst companies on the planet, and um, yeah, it's always been that way, like, and people have been fighting. There's certainly a difference, but I think it comes not from like the organizers themselves, but from like the appetite for people to engage with that organizing.
Yeah, I think that's a key part of it as well. It's that appetite for people to resist this. There is this huge astroturfed movement, I think, that is not like you say, it's not just exist, like it's amped up in current years contemporarily, but there has just been broadly this idea that there is this silent majority in America. They keep talking about it. They keep saying the silent majority. Trump says it every fucking speech now, where it's like, yeah, yeah, everyone just wants this. We all want our cities to be better, yada, yada, yada. But in truth, the silent majority is, of course, us. Most people are broadly against this kind of thing, and we just do not exist. This is the way that I've said it in terms of, looking at it kind of zoomed out. Nazi Germany, managed to do the things that it did because it existed at the time that it did. You can't really do the same thing, even though the US has so much power, because the political appetite is broadly different. You know what I mean? And I'm not
Mm.
saying that the US isn't capable of a Holocaust. I'm not saying that it hasn't committed multiple Holocausts over the fucking course of its existence. But when we're talking about this current moment in, like, the way that people are sort of, saying, oh, yeah, well, this is just like Nazi Germany and stuff. And it's like, well, it's not quite like that. Like, a lot of people are just kind of like, yeah, this isn't really what I voted for. And I think that, like, when Trump voters are saying that, I'm not saying that we need to like get them and pat them on the head and be like, there, it's okay. But I think that that is like a politically activating moment where you go, yeah, man, like you were lied to, innit? Like you were just lied to, and that's what we all have to understand is that bourgeois politicians will lie to you, and we can only rely on ourselves, right?
Just to like speak on that, I think like um I think a lot of people in America are just like deeply, deeply, deeply they feel deeply powerless, and they feel like deeply like exploit. They understand exactly what they're going through. You know what I mean? And They know that that things are not working. And when I talk to a lot of people who voted for Trump or MAGA voters, like what I hear a lot of the time is I just wanted to burn it down. Like I wanted an anti-establishment, a candidate that's going to fight against the thing that I'm living through. And they got fooled. You're right. They got lied to. And Donald Trump told a story that actually like it was a lie, but at least it explained the conditions that they're going through, right? He acknowledged the hurt that the American working class is experiencing. He blamed it on the out group, which is what fascists always do, right? And the Democratic Party, on the other hand, just denied denied that any kind of like hurt was happening. They said everything is going great, like everything is working exactly as we plan, and we're going to do it for another 4 years. And of course, that was like totally like, the American public didn't want that shit. Like
Yeah.
they found that disgusting.
Yeah, and it's just so clear. And the funniest thing I think about that is that that's what Trump says now. Trump says, "Yeah, everything's going to plan. It's all really good. Everything's fine. Inflation's gone. Yada yada yada. You name it. It's great. America's a utopia." I don't know if you've heard this, but yeah. So just going back to the org and stuff like that, I think that this is a great segue actually to talk about this because the next question that I wanted to ask you is what mix of people do you think are most attracted to the org? Like in terms of like, politics, not demographics. I think age is kind of relevant. Do you see like a broad amount? You've already mentioned that there is a broad coalition that organized for ICE rapid response, but particularly, what is the most striking thing about the people who organize with you in
Oh
terms of that?
wow. Um, I mean, I think you really do get like almost everybody. Like it's like there's a lot of like the Democratic base, I would say, which is, but like they're radicalized and like operating in a totally different way, right? So like there's a ton of like old white women who are involved in this work. Like I've done rapid response trainings with old nuns, like that wanted to get trained. And it's hard to even describe like a single kind of person, because I think like a lot of this organizing is activating people like totally like across all lines that they use to divide us, and so it's really promising. And I think it's like it shows, right? Because I think we talked about it a little bit of like, you don't want to allow Nazis into your movement and stuff, and like obviously, um, at the same time though, like I think we can organize around shared interests. And like like if there's a for example, like I wasn't around for Casey Tenants when this happened, so I'm gonna be telling a story like secondhand. But there was like a trailer home, a trailer park in Kansas City that was going to be displaced by like a massive development in like 2023. And there was a lot of like tension within the tenant union about whether to try to prevent this, whether to organize it. And a lot of people were saying like, well, I don't want to organize MAGA voters. Like they got all these Trump flags over there and I don't want to do that. And I think the union decided to organize there. And of course it was always something where it's like, if you're not comfortable like canvassing, then please, like, you are not required to stay home, but we are going to knock those doors and canvass. And in like the process of teaching people how to collectively wield power, these people who were, probably Trump voters, like by the end of it, they were like chanting "abolish rent." Like it's. I think when you actually activate people and you engage with them on their self interest, which for a lot of people is like they know that their landlord is fucking them, they know that their bosses are fucking them, like, and but they don't have they have no power, and so they try to express their power in Republican, like elections and stuff like that. And of course that doesn't bring them any closer to that feeling of power, but it doesn't help them in any way. And so I think there's a big opportunity for like working class people, for tenants, right, across all lines, to like recognize their self-interest and building power together, and and just acknowledging that we're stronger together than we are as individuals. And like these things are true, and
Mm.
we can prove it. Like, we can prove it. If you organize, you're gonna win. Like,
I will never ever forget the first ever person that I helped resist their eviction was a guy downstairs. He was just a neighbor, and I just had gotten speaking to him because whenever I would come home from shopping, I'd see him having a cigarette outside, and he's a neighbor, so spoke to him. And I will never forget the conversations that I had with him after, organizing this effective resistance, which basically he resisted this eviction from his landlord. It was a horrible story. He was made disabled from an accident at work, and didn't get sick pay, and so he couldn't afford his rent, so he was in arrears. And like I had these conversations, and he was like, well, what are you politically? And I was like, all right, well, this might sound a bit extreme, but like, I'm an anarchist communist, I'm an internationalist, I'm broadly just like a pragmatist, though, and I'm not like, desperately trying to preach my ideology to you or anything, but like, that's who I am. And then we got into this really interesting discussion where he started to say things like, yeah, but like, in the world, only the strongest survive. And I was like, yeah, and that would have been true for you too if I hadn't have stepped up and done something. And not just me, but like the union more broadly, right? Like, it was a fascinating moment, and it was just like this, you could see the realization in his eyes where he was like, oh yeah, no, actually, like, our species particularly is not necessarily that. So yeah, no, it's just a fascinating thing that, I think that that's such a good answer, and I think that that's a really good way to talk about it. Obviously, you've said to us, ICE Rapid Response wasn't your first organizing foray. How did you get into? I know that you do organizing with Kansas City Tenants Union, but did you do any organizing before that? If so, like, how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I was radicalized at Occupy um in 2011,
And you
and so I
didn't
was
become
like
Tim Pool. That's crazy.
right, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, yeah. So I was radicalized at Occupy in like 2011 in Chicago. And I was like 18 years old, just moved to the big city, you know what I mean? And like totally just got like absolutely swept away by this like movement, and had my first taste of like collective power. I saw like the fear in a cop's eyes at a protest one time, and kind of like low-key the rest is history. But I mean
That's the most addictive substance on earth, is
it
a
really
cop
is,
looking
isn't it?
afraid.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, after Occupy, I moved into like organizing at my university, and so I was doing a lot of like organizing with other students to fight against tuition increases, and to fight like and to do a lot of the same like pro-Palestine organizing that's happening in universities now, where we were demanding divestment from our school, and but it was a lot of like university-based organizing, and then from that kind of transitioned into, after I graduated, into more abolitionist like work, where we were fighting against the Chicago Police Department, and at that time, the mayor Rahm Emanuel was closing a lot of mental health facilities in the city and increasing the police budget, and so we were organizing around that and organizing for justice for people that the police had stolen from us. Um, yeah, and then I moved to Vietnam. I lived in Saigon for 3 years. Kind of like took a break from political organizing in general, but it was just kind of like doing self enrichment, basically, like working for a food and travel YouTube channel. And then I went and then I moved to LA, and I kind of got back involved with like abolitionist organizing there. So
That's dope. The reason that we ask these questions is so that hopefully our audience will listen to what you said and go, yeah, that sounds pretty normal, actually. Like, I think that I could probably do that. And obviously, this is leading into that question, which is, what would you say to people who are listening to this show or watching it, and they might be thinking about joining an ICE community defense org, whether it's rapid response, whether it's mutual aid, whether it's any of the other things that we've mentioned are so important to resist this stuff? How would you advise them to get involved at first? Someone who's never been outside.
yeah, that's a great question, and I love it. First off, I'll just say there's a role for everybody, and like if your idea of rapid response is like these flashpoints where people are getting tear gassed, and there's confrontation, and you're screaming, and you have to be like face to face with an ICE officer, that is like couldn't be furthest from the truth. There's so many different roles and so many like different personalities that we need to make this work successful. So there truly is a role for everybody. I would start, by, we have a website that the people in my community have made. It's called icerr.com, and that'll pull up a map of the entire United States. You can click on your state, and it'll give you the hotline number. So if you see ICE, there's immediately a place that you can call and report that. But it also has different organizations and different groups that are doing that work in your state. I recommend following them on Instagram and keeping an eye out for like trainings of any kind. I think it's really important that people attend trainings right now and get trained up on the ways that your immigrant community wants you to show up. Don't assume that you know the right way to do this. Like, the people who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And so, especially if you're going in as an ally in solidarity, we need to be centering those like people and being led by those people. So I recommend go to trainings, and then yeah, plug in. I always say like organizing moves at the speed of trust. So especially if you're coming in from the outside and you don't have like a lot of bona fides, or you don't have a lot of trust in that community, like take your time and be patient. It's not all going to happen in a day, but you got to take the first step. That's all there is. Take that first step, attend a training, send a cold email and just be like, how can I help? All of these things are just like it's just putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's like I'm always saying, actually, a lot of organizing, people would be surprised, is spreadsheets.
Hmm.
If you're good at a spreadsheet, you are useful to the movement.
Yes. Also,
um,
artists. We need like if you're
yes,
an
yes.
artist, if you do any kind of like visual work at all, like we need posters. But we need to be like make beautifying our cities with posters that say like ICE is not welcome here and has the hotline. We need people who are making infographics and multilingual people. We need translators. We need language justice and all this work. And so yeah, it really is like I can't tell you how much I think people's misconceptions about organizing get in the way. We it's really everybody. Like we really need everybody. There's nobody who is not going to be useful in some way.
Yeah, exactly. And what would you say to people listening to watching the show who are new to organizing? Can you give any examples of what kind of fears or trepidations you had about starting to organize and get involved in activism? Because I can imagine, particularly with it being Occupy, you were probably like, damn, this movement sounds like it wants to do a revolution. A little scary.
Yeah, honestly, I think I didn't have enough fear, I think actually. Like during
You
Occupy,
were a badass about
I
it.
was actually so sure that that shit was gonna take down capitalism. It was like I look back and it's like it's laughable, right? But like, yeah, I don't know. I was like 18. It was the only movement I had ever been in. I was like, oh, we're doing it now. Like this is the thing. And sometimes you need that. You need that ruthless, just like optimism. But yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of those fears and trepidations are based off of assumptions. And I think we first off just throw all your assumptions about what organizing is going to be away and just let it be what it is. And you know what I mean? Like just go into just it really is just like showing up and asking how can I help? Like that's it. Like you don't have to be the leader, you don't have to be the main strategist, you don't have to build this from the ground up. All you got to do is help. And you're going to help in the way that you can, and you're going to find a way to be to be useful. And that's what good organizers do, is that they plug you into where you want to be and like find your self-interest in this work, right?
Dope. Yeah, that's a great answer. And just before we move into the audience questions segment, is there anything that we haven't asked that you wanted to talk specifically about ICE rapid response that you think we should get into?
Um, no, I don't think so. What are your thoughts on bagpipes?
Yeah, dope. Great. Good stuff.
Okay,
Don't know
cool.
why you're
At
asking that,
protests
but
or just in general?
Yeah, protest bagpipes. It's a recurring meme in my community.
I
hell
like
yeah.
it a lot.
No,
Yeah, I
that
think
sounds
noise
great.
protests are great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a New Year's Eve one that happens outside of prison near me, like every year.
Oh wow, so the people inside can hear and everything.
Yeah, just so that, so the prisoners are having an even more terrible time. It's very considerate of the of the leftists in the area.
No, that's dope. We'll move on to audience questions. So this one is from Tim A. Casey, who you might recognize,
Hmm.
who asks, Brett, how can people who are not in the USA, who are not under attack by fascists, show solidarity and help us against ICE? A great question for our international audience.
Yeah, that is a great question. Honestly, I would say build it where you are. Like I, you know what I mean? I think just because it's not where you are now, um, doesn't mean that fascism is not on the rise. And when America catches a cold, the rest of you know what I mean? The rest of the world gets cancer. And so, like, you should expect this to come. And if it's not, like, you still need to organize so that you can stop it. Like, you know what I mean? And build these tactics, like, just like we are learning from other places, like y'all should be learning from us, and we should be learning for you. I wish there was more like international coordination in general. Like I think, we all share the same, very similar struggles, and like we only benefit from like getting together. So I would say,
Some
yeah,
kind of
just build
red
it.
planet.
Build it in your community. Talk to your own neighbors. Like build that shit where you are. Don't that we got us, I guess. That's all I got.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. Like, yeah, the struggle is like global. Like, imperial white supremacist capitalist hegemony is everywhere. Like, so yeah, it's gonna have the same issues. And I also know I think Kansas City tenants are part of the Tenant International, maybe. Um,
We have a tenant union federation, but I believe it's just
Yes,
national right
that's
now.
the USA. Yeah, so there is a tenant international, and I think it would be really interesting to see the anti-raids groups in the UK, and then more broadly in Europe and the rest of the world, maybe start something like that with ICE rapid response groups and
That would be
community
huge.
support
That would be huge.
in the
Yeah.
USA.
So the next
So
question from
yes,
the chat we've got is from Risk Inverse, who says, if you are going to record ice, etc., what's the best way to ensure that it gets out as opposed to stays on your phone?
That's a great question. So some people do like have like private servers that they like stream from their phone direct like to a private server. I would not recommend live streaming just like to a public audience in general. I kind of came up on Twitch as like a protest like live streamer. And I don't do that anymore just because I think the risks of like documenting protests, especially protests that are confrontational with feds, I think is way too high. Um, I think it's really important to have like a good like digital OPSEC practice, right? Like so never go to a protest with like Face ID or any kind of biometric data on your phone enabled. Always use like a passcode, like a 6 digit or more passcode. And I think there's also like there's a lot about like how to record ice and like what to record and all that would be covered in like a training that you would take. I don't want to take up all the time here doing that, but yeah, I think it's mostly like making sure that your phone can't be accessed afterwards, right? So like if you're taking a video, make sure that your phone is locked, that there's not Face ID. That's like the best advice I would give, I guess.
dope. And yeah, if any listeners of Red Planet aren't aware, we've got a couple of episodes on OPSEC. I'm pretty sure you can find those on wherever you find your podcasts or on YouTube. Next up, the next question is from Prince Infidel, who asks, what would you say to those that have already lost belief that organizing can meaningfully impact the current situations?
I mean, hope is a discipline, you gotta practice it. And I understand why people would like not have hope, especially for people who maybe haven't had that taste of like collective power and seen a victory in their lifetimes, which I think is like the vast majority of the working class, globally even. But we have to do it like regardless. And I know that's maybe not like that satisfying of an answer, but like, uh, yeah, like it's not over till it's over, and I'm not gonna fucking lay down and let a like racist ethnic cleansing campaign happen in my country in my name. You know what I mean? Like, um, and organizing is the only thing that has ever worked. Like, like I don't know what would have changed about the dynamics here that would not, that the entire history of class struggle and the way that that working people fight for a better future, like that would just suddenly not work anymore. Like these tactics have been developed over hundreds of years and with blood, like with people fighting and dying for us to live a better life. And we have a role to play in that history as well. We have to continue that struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And going to Saigon, you're gonna have like a real good understanding of that from probably the teachings of Uncle Ho. You know, he talks about the scientific revolutionary optimism. It's just gonna happen. Like we
Yeah.
just have to make it happen. Yeah. So do you want to do the next one?
Yeah, 100%. The next question from chat is from Cat Cattington R5I, who has asked, what one piece of Marxist cinema should everyone watch?
Ooh, I love that. Okay, Marxist cinema. I've been really enjoying Ken Loach recently in like the past few months. I'd also say like um a great movie that I think a lot of people, especially in the United States, should watch right now is Punishment Park. It's by Peter Watkins, who's a British director as well, but it's a very, very good movie. I love Peter Watkins. I think his work is like the perfect mix of like documentary and narrative, where he just like brings in real people and it allows them to kind of share their own stories in like really, really incredible ways. And Punishment Park is no different. Yeah, Marx is. I would say Paddington too, as like the quintessential abolitionist film. That's like perfect cinema there. ACAB cinema and Paddington too.
Hell yeah. Ken Loach mentioned, by the way. Hell yeah, love that. The I would recommend. I don't know if you've watched much Mike Lee. Have you seen much Mike Lee?
Mike Lee. I don't know if I have. Let me see.
Yeah, Mike Lee is another British like socialist film director. There's some
Okay,
really
cool.
interesting. I can't remember if it was him or Ken Loach that came up with like the kitchen sink drama, or at least like popularized it in this like very like if you've watched some Ken Loach films, you're gonna notice like yeah, this is depressing as fuck. But it's like, yeah, this is what working class life is like
Yeah,
in Britain.
yeah.
So I think it was either him or Mike Lee that like did the kitchen sink drama thing. Um, the next question from chat, the final question from chat, is from Timmy Casey again, who says Brett has said that organizing groups he works with consider most people who are involved to be leaders. Can you explain why that is and why there isn't just one leader?
Yeah, I think well this is like a Casey tenant. Okay, yeah.
A tenant
Which
tenant.
yeah, exactly. Which is that like a leader is somebody who steps up. You know what I mean? And I think like a lot of like early organizers make mistakes where they think they have to be the one that does everything and they have to like be the leader that's like directing everybody. And good organizing is just like giving people the authority to do it themselves. And like when organizing works the best, it's when people don't feel like they have to ask for permission and they just like do the thing that needs to be done. And like yeah, so I think building any kind of like collective power is that like collective power needs to be done collectively. Like we can't just wait on, if a movement needs one person to continue, then that movement is doomed from the beginning. Like it has to actually be a collective project where everybody is invested and everybody is fighting for their own self-interest and building that power. Also, Becca in the chat just said Haroon Faroki. That's another, yeah, incredible Marxist filmmaker. He has a short film called Inextinguishable Fire that is just unbelievably good. You can find it on YouTube. I highly recommend that.
Inextinguishable fire. I'm all over it. So, thank you so much, chat, Twitch chat, YouTube chat, for your questions, and thanks, Brett, for your answers. As we get towards the end of the show, obviously, the final thing that we ask you to consider for our audience is homework, and you've got a bit of homework for our dorkass, nerdass, organizing special interest viewers. What is that homework?
I love that. Well, first off, thank you, Sophie. Thank you, DJ Mule, for having me on and like giving me the space to talk here. I really, really appreciate it. I hope your audience got something out of it. The homework
Definitely.
today is talk to a neighbor. Talk to a neighbor. Go outside, go on a walk, and actually say like three sentences at least to one neighbor of yours, and learn their name, get their phone number, put it in your phone just to have it, just in case, and just develop a relationship. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be like a huge deep conversation, but it's just like, uh, you know, just build it, just like, building a little bit of community, little bit by bit, that it makes a really big difference, and you'll start to notice.
Dope. And anything else you want to plug before we say goodbye?
You can hear more of me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Cinemarxism. I'm also on YouTube, Cinemarxism YT, I think is my tag there. And yeah, I also, I tweet. I have a Twitter, Cinemarxism Bret on Twitter. That's it, really. Yeah. And shout
Excellent.
out, shout
Listen,
out Casey Tinnance, shout out icerr.com, get involved, like all of that.
yeah, no, absolutely excellent. Thanks so much for coming on. It's our pleasure to have you on. It's all in solidarity, right? That's what it's about. And obviously, we are very, very keen to hear about any other organizing that you've done. So hopefully, we could get a part two where we talk to you a bit about Kansas City tenants, or maybe even do a little talk about Occupy and how that went.
Yeah, it would be great to have you
I'd
back
be,
on 100%.
yeah, I'd be down. This was really fun. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, Bret. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye bye.
So, yeah, absolutely great. I'm certain that everybody will have gotten a lot out of that. Super, super important, super, super pertinent. Please go and check out Bret's stuff. Please check out that icerr.com. Yeah, absolutely. If you're in the States, or even if you're not in the States, start organizing to protect our neighbors who are of an immigrant background. It's super important, and Bret's absolutely right when he says that it's coming for all the rest of us in
Yeah.
the Imperial Core.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's the end of the show. And at the end of the show, we remind you that this is a show funded by you, our viewers, our listeners. Please head over to patreon.com/red_planet. There are many tiers by which you could support us, but at the very highest tier, our sicko tier, there is a thank you at the end of every show for someone who chooses to support us that much. And as always, thank you so much, Risk Inverse, our longest sicko member. Thank you so much for standing with us. Thank you so much for being with us for as long as you have. We really appreciate you. But also, don't forget, you've got two hosts here who need some love as well. And if I want to show a bit of love to the person next to me, Sophie from Mars, where can I do that?
Thanks very much, Mule. I my main income is from Patreon. I'm a YouTuber. I make video essays. You can check them out on Sophie from Mars, my YouTube channel. All of my links together are linktr.ee/Sophie from Mars. So you can see all of the stuff that I do there. I have many of the regular social media, accounts that you're meant to have, but I am trying to just generally not be just rotting my brain with screen time as much as I can, since taking my mental health more seriously. However, I am writing on Substack because I can do it in a much more writing and not be on social media and upload it and then fuck off offline and live my life. And it's been a very organizing focused winter. I made a video on my main channel called They Said on TV, You Aren't a Person Anymore. It is about trans organizing. It's about how trans people need to organize. And when I say how trans people need to organize, I don't mean that we need to organize. I mean how we need to organize, because I've detailed specifics of how we can organize in our communities to save lives immediately, the most vulnerable among us. Oh no, I said it mogus. And then I followed it up on my Substack with a summary of the details of community assembly model that I talked about in that video. And then I also recently was asked for my takes on Minnesota. So if you found any of the stuff today about ICE, about community organizing and stuff I've said interesting, I've actually written a short piece about Minnesota and Minneapolis on my Substack. If you want to support me, Patreon, but broadly, all of my links are at linktr.ee/Sophie from Mars. But what if people wanted to support my lovely, wonderful co-host, DJ Mule?
Oh, that's very kind of you, so thanks very much. I am on Twitch 4 days a week, aside from Red Planet. So if you go to twitch.tv/DJ MUEL, I will be covering the news, geopolitics from an anti-imperialist and a communist perspective, trying to, talk more broadly about what it means when we read the news and how we can take that and learn from it and, organize against it, essentially. So I think that is why my stream is good. I also have a YouTube channel, and you could get me there as well. I'm at DJ MUEL on YouTube. I'm planning a video on the Filton 24, who have just been through hunger and water strikes in the prison system in the UK, who were part of Palestine Action before it was prescribed, who smashed up weapons factories and this, that, and the other, allegedly. And I'm going to be talking about the Filtered 24 in particular, because I think that there is a clear through line of the imperial boomerang that has come home to punish these individuals in the UK. And I think it's worth talking about their struggle and what's going on. So yeah, that's that. I've got a Patreon. I've got a link tree. You can find it all in the chat or in the description of the podcast. And that is that. But we also have a host who isn't here this week, our sweet Timothy, and solidarity with him. The last that we heard about him is that he's changing a tire in the rain. It sounds real shit. Love you, Tim. Hope you're doing okay, sweet Tim. Check out linktree.ee/dreadconquest, and you can find more about Tim there. But definitely make sure you check out his videos. They are absolutely quality. They don't get enough of a shout out, I don't think. But yeah, that's it for the show this week. We've got another amazing guest next week and another show next week, so make sure you join us 8 p.m. UK time Sunday, and we'll be back speaking to Marcus, I believe, about organizing for Cuba, which is another pertinent, really important thing. So we'll see you then.
Bye.